Ranking all the Rites of War for Horus Heresy 2.0, Part 4, the Drop Pod Assault. My name is Mechanid, let's get started. One theatre of warfare in which the Space Marine legions were without peer was the Orbital Assault. All units in a detachment using this Rite of War that could take a Rhino or Land Raider carrier can take a drop pod or Dreadclaw drop pod as a dedicated transport instead. Dreadnoughts in this detachment must take a Dreadclaw drop pod or a Dreadnought drop pod and may not be taken in units of more than one. Limitations. All units in this detachment using this Rite of War must deploy by means of a drop pod assault. A detachment using this Rite of War may not take any fortifications. Any models that are not in a form of drop pod must be placed into reserve and cannot arrive by alternate deployment such as Deep Strike. Continuing with the fortification hate, this Rite of War lets you drop Marines right into the thick of it using the drop pod deployment. Basically, before the start of your first turn, you assign all drop pods to a drop pod assault, and then at the start of your first turn, all drop pods enter play. To start, you deploy a single drop pod, scatter it 2d6, and stopping if you come within an inch of a table edge or an enemy model. Then you roll a dice, and on a 1, your opponent deploys all the rest of the drop pods up to 24 inches away from the first pod. If not, then you deploy those drop pods. Then you resolve any pinning tests caused by the landing, and then you get your guys out, and then you resolve any interceptor reactions. In essence, you're going for a huge turn 1 haymaker, and as such, it's the limitations first. Starting with most or all of your army off the board is a very risky strategy. You're betting a lot on everything going right for you, as well as ceding the ground for your opponent to deploy and make infiltrators without you being able to screen them out at all. Also, that 1 in 6 chance to have a disordered deployment can completely mess up your plans. I'd recommend having some tough allies to hold down the fort until the cavalry deploys from orbit, and also bringing some Nuncio Voxes to let you re-roll those scatter dice to help with the consistency. And naturally, running into an opponent who brings a lot of augury scanners or has their helical targeting arrays turned on can spell doom for your orbital drop, as you'll run into a mess of interceptor fire, and your only counter for this is for your opponent failing their pinning checks or for you dropping outside their interceptor range. Also, because all units in this detachment have to take a drop pod, it means that squads with bulky, such as Terminators, are going to be limited on their squad size unless you're shelling out for the really big drop pods. Bear in mind that this Rite of War specifically mentions that it's a Rhino or a Land Raider Proteus carrier, so if your unit can't take either of those as a transport, you might not be able to join in this drop pod assault. Next, limiting Dreadnoughts to only a single unit in a Talon isn't too bad, but you're getting less value out of your elites and heavy support slots as it's only a single Dreadnought filling this slot and not 3. The fact that anything not in a drop pod must start in reserve and can't enter via alternate deployment methods means that you're going to be without a board presence turn 1 unless you take allies. Also, if you don't take allies and have other parts of your army coming on from reserve, you're going to have to wait until you can roll for them, and because of that, you're disincentivized into taking anything that can't take a drop pod. Basically, you don't want to be feeding your army piecemeal into the teeth of the enemy. Finally, this Rite of War does disadvantage infantry with heavy weapons, as disembarking counts as moving. That's it for now, and next week we'll be back with the upsides. Stay tuned for more. My name is Mechanid, thanks for watching.